I also gave him stories for each 3 of those. So each week, I helped him realize more stories that he could do. And I also told him, if you ever sell someone that doesn't fit our culture, our model, and they come to our digital agency experience, you're going to be rooming with them. What's up, agency owners? Jason Swenk here with another episode of the Smart Agency Masterclass, a podcast for the digital agency owner that wants to hear amazing stories from other agency owners so you feel that you belong to something and you can actually learn from them. And on today's episode, I have an amazing agency owner that we're going to chat about how do they know when it's time to get out of sales? What have they actually tried that hasn't worked? And what is the one thing that you can do as an agency owner to give to your internal team to give them the power in order to be a better salesperson from you? So let's go ahead and jump into the show. Hey, Chris, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jason. I love that opening. I think you were wearing a pirate shirt on stage. I just saw it. Was that a pirate shirt?
It could have been the puffy shirt. I don't know. Maybe.
You wear it well.
I appreciate that. Well, I also have a dinosaur outfit and all kinds of things to get people's attention. So I always like to go across my neighbors in Colorado, their cams, and I dress up as different things like Sasquatch or dinosaurs. And like they'll get on their camera like, what the hell is that?
Yeah. Down here in Florida, you don't want to do that because your neighbor just might shoot you.
Well, same in Colorado, but tell us who you are and what you do.
Chris Brewer. I'm the co-founder of an agency called OMG Commerce that was established way back in 2010. And I do that with my business partner and co-founder of 13 years, Brett Curry, who many folks know in the space.
Awesome. And how did you guys start the agency, or why did you guys start?
I had been an entrepreneur previously into direct mail and outdoor advertising, have my own companies there. Brett was an agency owner, more traditional media, radio, television. I sold part of my business to the wrong guy, was really miserable, and got that guy before I was on the way out to pay for a ticket to go to the old Dan Kennedy, Bill Glazier Super Conference. And that was in Dallas, Texas in 2009 or 10. And Russell Brunson was speaking there. Another guy was speaking there on Google Maps. And on a break, it was, as you remember those super conferences, they were pitch fests. I went out super excited on this $6,000 offer from Gareth Owen, as a matter of fact, and said, Brett, this could be a great business. And we decided to give it a trial run, selling Google Maps optimization to local businesses. And we sold $30,000 worth of Google Maps optimization in our first year in Springfield, Missouri. And so we turned that into SEO and pay-per-click, and then it grew into our e-com agency we have today.
That's amazing that actual business actually got generated from some of those conferences. Because literally when you said pitch fest, I was like, oh my God, like I'm not saying anything bad about certain people, but I'm like, we've all been to those conferences where it's like pitch and everyone runs in the back to get that.
That whole company was a mess. Like it was called In Local. A guy named Armin Morin, if you remember him, was behind it. And he was big in the internet space and speaking back then. And it was after our down payment, they charged us $9 to claim and optimize a local business listing. And we were charging $375 to $450. So those margins were pretty nice, but it led to them not having a very viable business on their side. And so luckily we were able to get a good business up and running in that first year. So when those businesses came up to renew, and most businesses don't renew on a one-time service, we had already had other things in place. So you're right. Not a lot of excitement at those conferences, not a lot of substance 2 or 3 months after, I don't think.
Yeah, it's kind of, we won't go down the rabbit hole for those, but let's talk about sales, right? So you guys been doing this for a while. You guys are a multi-million-dollar agency. When did you realize that you needed to not be doing all the sales? When did that come to fruition?
This is embarrassing, Jason. You're going to make me answer this?
Yes.
Oh, gosh, it's starting to sweat.
Come on, I'm going to make you cry.
Probably 7 or 8 years ago.
Okay. All right. When you realized that, what stopped you, or what did you try? What have you tried?
Well, I think, realizing it and then actually verbalizing that to your business partner are two different things. And so I think if Brett was on this call, he'd probably say I didn't mention it 7 or 8 years ago, but I know it was in my mind, like the sustainability and that thing. But you look at where your business is now and like the leads coming in and the ability to close them and scale. And so I remember there were conversations along the way like, hey, maybe we should look to outbound. And there was so much inbound coming in. It was like, why do we need to go after outbound? Like there's plenty of leads coming in. And then you wake up in summer of 2022 and go, I hear crickets. Where are those coming from? Where did all the buyers go? And now it's like gas pedal. We need to hire for outbound sales, and would have been great if we'd had that. Yeah, hindsight's always wonderful in agency land.
Yeah, I remember, and I see this with a lot of agencies, is you get started by accident. Your business is based on word of mouth or referrals that just aren't scalable. So you see this coming in, or you are good at attracting them for a certain amount of period, but you rely on one channel rather than realizing that there's probably 3 different channels you need at the same time. Because if one channel goes down, your pipeline is constantly building. The 3 channels that I always talk about are we're attracting, right? The inbound, and outbound that you mentioned, but also a strategic partnership, not a referral partnership, but strategic partnership like we did with Sitefinity or Microsoft, or you would do with a long time ago HubSpot, right? Before there was 1,000 HubSpot agencies. So, I always looked at it kind of those 3 channels. From the time you realized to the time you vocalized, was that the 7-year period, or was there things that you've tried between?
Well, yeah, we had other channels. I think you could probably put a lot of those under inbound. Like for instance, I believe I've done a really good job over the years, as has Brett, in one, being trusted and reliable and having a good reputation in the agency space. So then other agencies feel very comfortable sending us referrals, whether it's Amazon and they don't do Amazon, or email, all of those things. And even agencies that we compete head to head with, we have partnerships with for other services. So there's a high level of trust. And so that's where those strategic partnerships were helpful. But then again, if most of your strategic partnerships are with other agencies and they are also inbound, then you're not going to see those referrals coming in, and they're going to keep more of the business when things get slower. So that channel is going to slow down. Also, conferences, Brett and I back in the day, we would both try speaking at conferences and things like that. About 3 or 4 years ago, I decided, you know what, I need to let Brett just be the face of the business. I'm not going to go after this anymore. But Brett really stepped into that. And, he speaks at, you name the conference in D2C e-com, Brett's probably spoken at it. And again, traditionally, pre-COVID, brands were a lot more consolidated at certain industry conferences. You could get on a stage, speak, go back to your booth, and you would get inundated. Now you can go speak and you're not inundated because the brands just aren't at the conferences and the size brands that we want to work with. So I think that's where along the way we looked at, okay, do we open one of these 50 emails from a lead gen company that's coming after our agency? And it would be a fun podcast just to kind of go through the content that they send out and how bad some of it is and how creative some of it is. But I've enjoyed a bottle of a premium red wine from one of those companies. I've done other kinds of things that gave me unique opens, but we looked at those and we endeavored into some of those. They didn't play out too well because, again, when we saw how things were going, a lot of other agencies did too. Now, all of a sudden, all the brand owners' inboxes are chock full of agency emails. So to your point, that's why you have to have multiple areas and even content marketing around your agency to attract the right kinds of folks to you. And I do believe I still believe outbound is a big part of that. But it's one that for us recently was a little disappointing kind of experience. And we're having to kind of retool that again.
There's a flood of companies that reach out to agencies and businesses that say, hey, we can generate all these leads. And, we've even gone through them and experienced them and seen a lot of our mastery members experience them. And we haven't seen one work, not one single work in what we've been doing the mastermind and the mastery for 7 years. We've been doing the podcast 9 years. Not one worked. But I don't want to talk about that yet. I want to talk about, why do you feel, what makes you a better salesperson? We were talking about this on the pre-show, right? And I really liked what you said. It's like, I really don't have an ego on selling until I tried all these people. And then I'm like, man, they are really bad. So my ego, right? Like, I'm the shit. Like, I'm really up here and I've gone through the same thing. Tell me a little bit more about that and why.
I've been through a few iterations with this thinking. There was a time in my agency where, because Brett and I were 50-50, I just felt like I needed to share the spotlight and I wanted to address the company. So I had the co-founders corner where once a month I could address the company. But I had to really think about that and go, are you doing this for you? Or are you doing this because you're a leader and you have something to give? And when I really settled back and said, a lot of this was about me and my need for attention or approval, even in my 40s, I decided, hey, I can be bigger than that. I'm just going to step back and let my partner do what he's great at, and I'll do what I'm great at. And what I'm great at is relationships and connecting with people at a level that is not squirmy or awkward or having a feel like you're getting sold. And I could mention a couple of things we can put in the podcast notes if you want to read up on places on how to do that, and great books and great teachers on that kind of thing. Ari Galper is one of those who taught me waltzing language and how to say things that don't build sales pressure. So I think an owner is always, unless you're a total sales idiot, is always going to sell better than an outside hire in a lot of cases.
Why do you think that? I have an idea why, I think, and I think that might help a lot of people listening too. Why do you think an owner is better? What makes the difference between an owner and a salesperson that you hire that possibly could sell?
I think there's a number of things. I think some of it could be related to compensation, that an owner, unless they're desperate, I'd never want to come across sounding that way, but an owner is just going to step into a conversation. They want to make sure they're getting the right kind of clients that they can serve and that are going to be good fits in their agency. And so they can have a very comfortable, non-sales pressure related conversation that actually either separates the old prospects from suspects very quickly. And then if so, it moves along. And because the prospect sees you as the owner, you have a high degree of credibility and also trust. And I think my gray hair and what hair is left is also helpful, especially with the kind of brands that we work with. I'm not putting them on a call with, forgive me, young agency owner audience, a 24-year-old who just, they can go to your LinkedIn account quickly and see that you were working in a cell phone store before you started your agency. And so I think some age and experience has a lot to do with that. And other than that, I'd be interested in your perspective, what you think. But it is very difficult, I think, to get out of the owner or co-founder role as in sales.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned gray hair, but here's my thought. And I actually proved this model when I hired Darby, our agency scale specialist. A lot of you guys have seen him on the podcast. You guys have chatted with him. His background was selling floors, and he was a manager of selling floors. His best friend, Ian, who's a really amazing friend to me and in our mastery, he introduced us when I was like, man, I need to get a salesperson. Now, Darby never even knew what an agency was, didn't know anything about the agency space whatsoever. And I always kept trying to break down what made me a good salesperson for our business, for our agency, for this business, all that. First, and you mentioned it, we're not selling, we're helping. Now, how can we help? Well, we have to have a model to follow, but what backs up that model? Stories. As owners, we all know the stories of successes that people can relate to. We all go to the movies, we chat with people that we like their stories. We hang out with them because we want to hear their stories, or we watch people on YouTube like a Rogan. We're like, we like the stories that he's telling, or maybe you like the stories we tell here, right? And then you can connect with them. So how I broke it down for Darby is I broke it down into 3 ways. I looked at a business of agency and I said, what are the 3 things that we can create to see if they're a successful, healthy business? So we looked at it as, and if you guys have ever done a blueprint with us, we look at it on attract, convert, and scale. And then we have categories in those 3 areas. So I gave him a model to follow. I also gave him stories for each 3 of those. So each week I helped him realize more stories that he could do. And I also told him, if you ever sell someone that doesn't fit our culture, our model, and they come to our digital agency experience, you're going to be rooming with them if they don't fit our model. And I'm going to put you into them. So he makes a decision based on that. Like, do we want these people hanging out with us rather than do we need the paycheck? So I always looked for, do they have an understanding of sales? Do they believe in what we believe in? And are they trainable? And it's just been amazing. Once I realized that, and a lot of our mastery members, we've showed them that, and they've been like, holy cow, I don't have to do everything. Like, they don't even need you, but they only need you for the new role, which is building the relationships, right? Being the face of the organization, coaching and mentoring your leadership team, understanding financials, right? So you should get out of the sales. Does that make sense?
No, it does. And I'm glad you brought up that kind of story selling type of angle there, because, you know, one of the first people I trained under in sales way back in the day was Brian Tracy, and went through his psychology of selling program. And one of his big things is selling is not telling. However, when you are in the discovery mode with a potential prospect and you're asking them questions and then they're coming back with questions towards you, I would say that is definitely something that I think others would say that I'm very good at. When I'm not selling, I'm a storyteller, right? I've got stories about playing golf with Michael Jordan. I've got stories about riding a bull in a rodeo. I got stories about diving with sharks, and all, like, I've got them all, and I can weave things in. And I've got stories about every kind of brand because I've talked to hundreds of them and we've worked with thousands of them. So I love the idea how you're hooking those in, because you can definitely, I'm already telling stories in third person. Our team worked with this brand one time and they saw this when we did this, and I think that could work for you. What do you think about that? So being able to relay those things is very powerful. And I think we could all easily in our training go through those kinds of points of, hey, mention that time we did this for this automotive brand, or because you've all got power quotes. We've got a spreadsheet with power quotes from clients. Those power quotes all relate to things that we did that gave them a desired outcome. So I love that. And you have actually have me a little jazzed about putting that into works over here.
Yeah. I mean, if you can give the stories to, and I believe when you're building a sales team, they need to be internal. Stop hiring these people that promise you the world, because we've all been ripped off by that. I'm sure there's a unicorn out there. And if you're the unicorn, I appreciate you. But we have not found you. And I have never seen
you. Stop using Gmail addresses too, because that automatically excludes you as a unicorn.
Yes. And please stop reaching out to me on LinkedIn and then coming to me with a paragraph of what you can do for us. But I mean, at the end of the day, if you can create an easy model that helps them figure out how they can actually help your audience, help the prospect first, rather than going through a pitch deck. Like if you're going through a pitch deck, you're in the 1980s, you're in the 1990s, maybe the early 2000s, right? Like you shouldn't have a pitch deck. Literally, like it should be questions and pulling the stuff out of them. And you're going to separate yourself from all the other agencies out there. And they're going to be like, oh, this is different. Like, I really like this. And
that's exactly, I'm not going to say I've never used a pitch deck. We have a capabilities deck that I keep in my hip pocket. So if people say, well, what else do you do? Do you have 5 minutes? I can take you through this quick thing, give you a quick overview. But that is the separation point when a potential client discovers, oh, this is just a conversation and I'm not going to be sold. And even though because they've all clicked the strategy session box on the website and it's not a strategy session, it's a demo. And nobody wants that. We still call it strategy session on our site because that's what we actually deliver. And people will pick up on that very quickly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like a book a free consultation. Like, charge for it, but like you don't charge for it right off the get go. There's a whole nother episode on that. But this has all been amazing. I just wanted to really make sure all of you feel the same pain that we all felt trying to replace ourselves as salespeople. Like you can take a step up when you can replace yourself in a number of different roles in the company, right? Like if you think about when you started and you and your partner were doing everything. And then you're like, when you can get rid of project management, oh my gosh, that was amazing. When you can get around account management, amazing. You get rid of marketing, amazing. I'm still trying to figure that one out, right? Like there's all kinds of, things that you can replace yourself on the stuff that you do not need to be doing.
If you want to exit, you're going to have that in mind. And if you want to take vacations, you're going to have to do that. Yeah. And I was reminded by Molly Pittman this past weekend in Puerto Rico at a mastermind. I said, I just realized, Molly, I haven't taken a full 2-week vacation in 4 years. And Molly said, I schedule two 2-week vacations every year and I take them because, Chris, if you can't step out of your business for that amount of time, then why are you running a business? I was like, oh, Molly, that hurts. That's painful.
It's true. When we used to work with clients one-on-one, I used to say, go take 2 weeks off before we work together. Oh, I can't do that. Well, that's what we're going to find out what's broken because we're used to working around the clock and we think we need to be there. But at the end of the day, and I'll tell the audience this a lot of times, is it'll be the best day and the worst day for you when you walk into a meeting and your team doesn't need you. And you walk into another meeting, your team doesn't need you. Now, it's the best day because now your business is scalable. It's the worst day for you short term until you realize the business needs you for something else and it doesn't need you for the crap you used to do. So just remember that because I went through depression for probably a couple months after that happened. And then a couple months later, we were actually able to exit because we did create a business that was sellable and scalable, without us doing everything. And that's what people want. And I want the opportunity for all of you to have the opportunity to exit if you want. If you don't want, no problem. But I want you to have that option because you never know what life will throw at you later on. And it'll be more sustainable business. So, well, Chris, this has all been amazing. Is there anything I did not ask you that you think would benefit the listeners listening in?
I think one thing that I was thinking about is how to be the most productive in the things that are going to actually move you forward. And I think the little advice that I would give there is, I think a lot of people are probably like me as entrepreneurs. I'm very ADD. People will say, wow, Brewer, you're all over the place. Yes, I am. And that's why I make a lot of money, because I am all over the place. I do get myself involved in a lot of things, but I can also be my own worst enemy. And so what I would say to those agency owners out there that may have a particular area they're struggling on, or an area that they would like to do, or a book they're writing, or whatever it is, you've heard about time blocking. That's fine. A lot of us will block time and then allow things to creep in, impinge on that. And I want to take this a step further, is that just start with one thing. And if that's getting up an hour earlier to accomplish that thing, just do it for 2 weeks and see what happens. Then I'm going to add something to that. You need to find an accountability partner in your business to hold you accountable to your time blocks, and put a financial or personal or emotional penalty attached to that, and give that person the permission to do that. And I would say, like, make it painful. So for me, it would be, I've had a book for 3 years that Qasim Islam and I were going to co-write, and it's been on the shelf a little bit. And I'm going to block time for that here for the next several weeks. I've used some of the AI to help move that along. But I've just got to go to my wife and say, hey, if I am not getting up and working on my book between 7 and 8 a.m. 3 days this week, I'm going to put $500 into your checking account at the end of the week. If I can't commit to you that I've done that, and I will deposit the money. So make it painful. And for others, it could be other things. But I would just say, move a step beyond blocking time and make yourself accountable to those things, and you'll find some massive change for you.
So your wife is messing with your alarm and hitting the snooze button for you. If I was a wife, I'd be like, yes, snooze. I'm changing your alarm clock.
She's going to be able to buy a new couch. Let's just put it that way.
The one thing I'll add, when you have to create rules and figure out why you want this, right? When I started blocking the time, I don't book any meetings on Monday. I do work on Mondays. I don't do anything on Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. Those are all my fun days. And then I only work from 9 to 2 p.m., right? But I come up with rules, but then I also go, well, why? Why am I not going to work or do anything on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday? It was like, hey, I want to go have epic Fridays. I want to be able to spend time with my family because I'm getting older and all that kind of stuff, right? So you got to create those to hopefully hold yourself accountable. I do like the penalty or the reward system that you have on there too. So what's the agency website? People can go and check you guys out.
Yeah, agency website is omgcommerce.com. I would encourage you to take a look at our guides section so you can see the kind of resources that we have out there. I'd also encourage you to look at our partner page, which we really love using partner page for all the relationships and things that we have there. And yeah, and you can reach me there really by just clicking on the strategy session, just fill out the form. It's going to come across my desk, but I'm also active on LinkedIn and Twitter a little bit, but the easiest way to get a hold of me is through my website.
Awesome. Well, everyone go check that out. And thanks so much for coming on the show. And if you guys, I have a personal invite for all of you that are listening. If you're at a point where you want to gain more clarity, more confidence for scaling your agency in the right way, where you can actually create a predictable asset rather than an agency burden where it's predictable, it's producing wealth, freedom for you. We'd love to do an agency blueprint for you. Make sure you go to agencymastery360.com/agency-blueprint. And that's not the best URL. We probably need to come up with one, but we will put it in the show notes for you guys to go check it out. But we'd love to give you more clarity and confidence in making those right decisions. So go there now. And until next time, have a swank day. Tell me about the Michael Jordan story. I want to hear that.
In 1994, I was a assistant golf professional at a club called Isleworth in Windermere, Florida. It's where Tiger Woods backed into the hydrant. Back in that day, the golf pros were like Mark O'Meara and Payne Stewart and guys like that. And it was 200 members, very high net worth individuals. And like Lou Holtz was a member, and I could name, it was a who's who kind of place. So any day of the week, you could have a celebrity showing up to play golf. And so like I got to meet Sylvester Stallone and Don Johnson and Kenny G and Dwight Gooden. I mean, I could just I kept a list at one point way back in the day because I thought it was so cool. But after a while, you kind of get like, oh, these are just regular people. Mm-hmm. Okay, Dwight Gooden's coming out. Yeah, he's just a regular guy. He's a cool guy. But on this particular day, Michael Jordan, it was actually his second attempt at the club because the first time he just drove up to the gate and they wouldn't let him in because he wasn't on the list. And so they turned Michael Jordan away, which was awesome. And
which made him want to play there even more.
Yeah, so then he finally got a member connection and was out there playing with a guy that he grew up with at college. And he was the guy that when the gambling stuff came out, that was the guy that he hung around with. Well, anyway, he was out there and he played the front nine with the head golf pro. And I was managing the shop, which for me, it was the worst. Like I hated working the shop because 200 members. And in the summer in Orlando, like how many times can you put a ball around the shop? It was torture. And on this particular day, I saw them making the turn and I saw only 3 guys on the tee box. So doing what a future sales leader would do, I'm like, I am moving on this. So I went out there and I was like, and I didn't just say, hey, can I play? Which is another good advice. I was like, hey, what happened to your 4th player? They're like, oh, he had to give a lesson. I'm like, well, did that screw up your game? Like, yeah, you want to play? I'm like, yeah, go get your sticks. So I went and grabbed my golf clubs and we had a 9-hole match. I got to ride in the cart with him a few times, just going after balls and stuff. And as you would expect, a guy of his stature, very to himself and not going to give a lot of stuff out, but it was fun. But we got to the 9th hole and we're driving between the 8th and the 9th. And I asked the first assistant, whose name was also Mike, I said, how are we doing? He's like, we need to win this hole. And I'm like, well, how much do we lose? He goes, you don't want to know.
Yes, I was going to ask how much money.
So anyway, he goes, but if we press and win, we'll each get $100. So I said, okay, fine. And I was 23. I had no money.
You know, he was betting way more than $100.
Well, it probably, we could have been down $500 or something like that if we had lost. But anyway, which I didn't have that money. And so we get to the 9th hole, we press, and my friend Mike Urigan, who I just reconnected with after 20 years, he gets up there and Michael Jordan is trash talking him. Like, you're going to hook it in the water. You guys are going to lose, blah, blah, blah. And he's laughing and slapping his buddy on the back. Well, Mike snap hooks it in the water. And so he's out of the hole for all intents and purposes. So then I get up there, I tee the ball down, and in my mind, I'm like, wow, this is like my moment here. I need to perform. And then he starts trash talking me. He's like, your buddy just hooked it in the water. You're going to hit it OB right, because there's a road down the right. And I was playing mini tours back then and stuff like that. I was a good player. And I thought to myself, this is the biggest moment of my life. So I collected myself and I looked and I said, Michael. And he goes, yeah. I said, do you see that tree at the end of the fairway, right in the middle? He goes, yeah, I see it. I said, well, don't quit looking at it because my ball's not leaving it. And he just got quiet. And I got up there and I hit my drive, perfect draw right down the middle. He didn't say a word, got into his cart. I hit it to about 4 feet. And back in those days, I did not miss inside 5 feet. And he'd probably seen me drain a few putts. I don't know. But I get up there 4 foot for birdie to win the hole in the bet. And on my backstroke, Jordan just screamed. Ah! I missed the putt. He walks over, hands me $100 and says, good putt. And then we got a picture and that was it. And I've told that story and have probably made a lot of money off that story for years. And I'm actually I want to get my game a little better, but I'm going to be reaching out to his agent and see if I can get a rematch at his course down here in Florida and just send some copies of the pictures and the priority mail or FedEx or whatever. And I have a feeling.
I think that's a great idea. Yeah, hell yeah, you should do that.
Yeah, do the rematch and basically just say, I am grateful to you for losing to me because you have enabled me to tell this story and I want to give you a chance to win your money back.
It's fantastic. I think you should.